but then I started to not feel as creative anymore.
In the early 2000s, Nelly Furtado was everywhere. She was extremely successful in the music industry, but then everything came crashing down for her when she just pretty much completely disappeared, seemingly out of nowhere. And trust me, you'll be shocked to hear what happened to her and what she's doing now. When Nelly first rose to fame, she had 2 of her tracks launch to the top of 10 of the Billboard Hot 100 chart, with her track I'm Like a Bird even gaining her a Grammy Award for the Best Female Pop Vocal Performance. Her career was a success from the very beginning, which is usually great news for a singer like her, but unfortunately, things weren't as great as they seemed on the surface. With such rapid rise to fame, also came the incredibly difficult process of trying to figure out how to be famous and what that meant for her. On top of already dealing with such a difficult thing, Nelly also suffered from mental challenges that included anxiety and depression. Though she felt like her music was an outlet for her, it also seemed to be the one thing that caused her a huge amount of stress at the time. But since she was so successful, she didn't want to just stop altogether, so she found herself pushing to stay in the right state of mind. While it's clear that in doing so, she continued to see massive success as her hard work paid off, it also continued to take a mental toll on her. At one point, just over 6 years into her career, Nelly finally decided that she had enough. She just couldn't take it anymore. After that, we never really heard from her until many years later. All of this was a huge shock to everyone, especially considering just how popular she was in mainstream music at the time. Although her second album was a little bit of a flop, she was able to come back in 2006 bigger than ever. So it seems strange that she would just quit after having such a successful comeback that launched her career even further. But we finally got some answers from her in 2012 when she agreed to an interview with the Daily Mail. In the interview, she said that she actually had an on-stage breakdown that finally made her realize that she needed to step away from her career. As she explained the story, she was on the Lose tour with her daughter. This was her 3rd studio album, and between being a mother and a touring artist, things were incredibly difficult for her. She found it hard to juggle her time between those two very important things. Then she said that one night, while she was on stage, she suddenly stopped to realize just how stressed she actually was. She said that she never really allowed herself to feel it until the very moment. She ended up crying her way through the first few songs of her set. After that, she decided that she officially needed a break from music. She went home, and once she was home, she realized that being at home and having the real family experience was something that she was craving that whole time. She also mentioned that after 2 years of non-stop touring and partying, she started to feel like a complete fraud, since she would always go to her LA home alone and sit on the floor and think about who she'd become. Nelly also felt like people really only liked her for the image she portrayed, but not for her actual music, which she was so passionate about. Although it sounds like walking away was the right decision for her, she said that it wasn't easy taking the break. Apparently, people would constantly try to contact her about recording another album. She finally caved in 2009 and released a Spanish language album, which was shockingly so popular that it even won her a Latin Grammy. Following that one, she released one more album in 2012, but was met with very little success, as most people had no idea she was even releasing music. And it goes without saying that she didn't do any live performances of either of these albums since she stepped down back in 2007. While it's clear that she still had a lot of passion for music and never really wanted to leave it, she just wasn't ready to come back. And I can't really blame her, since I can't even imagine how difficult it must have been to be a mother and to constantly be touring at the same time. Many musicians say that touring is already hard enough, so it's shocking that she was able to do it while taking care of her daughter. And it really seems like she was specifically dealing with the extreme loneliness that can often come with fame. Although millions of people knew who she was, that still didn't stop her from going home alone every single night. She even said that she would often stare off for hours just thinking about her life, which I can imagine felt very long and probably super confusing for her. It also sounds like she struggled with a sense of imposter syndrome and didn't really feel like she deserved the success she had. Either that, or she didn't like the kind of success that she had and was possibly expecting something different. Although she was on top of the charts several times throughout her career, her other music that she put passion into received no praise, and this was probably a huge part that contributed to why she felt like she was so alone. She celebrated her folk roots and her Portuguese heritage, but the only things that really did well were her more explicit pop songs, which probably makes sense as those were the kind of songs that people wanted to listen to during that time. But I can see why she might have felt like no one really cared about her actual music, because in a way it really looks like that might have been the case. success. And it's unfortunate that we took her for granted all those years ago, since it made her realize just how much she didn't want to be in the spotlight anymore. But despite these issues within her career, it looks like she's led a much happier life since stepping away from the spotlight. She actually released an album in 2017 independently under her own record label, and said that she decided to create the label because she felt very passionately about artists being able to own their own masters, an issue that other artists like Taylor Swift know all too well. While this album didn't reach any kind of success, it seems like she really didn't care this time around and was doing it for herself and those who wanted to hear it. Shockingly enough, we did actually see her perform one more time. This was when Drake asked her to perform during the Uvu Fest in Toronto that same year. Since then, she was traveling and doing charity work with Save the Children. She also started taking a ceramics class and a playwriting class at her local university, and even started working at her daughter's school library sorting books. And she apparently sometimes works the till at her friend's record store. Although this all sounds pretty random, she said that it really helped her to remember just who she was and get back to her roots, which sounds like the perfect thing for her since she was struggling for so long with trying to figure out who she was in all of her fame. And even though she had a hard time during those early years of her career, she said that she will never regret the days when she was in her prime. Nelly said that her music is bigger than her at this point, and it's become something entirely different. So it sounds like she's finally found herself and the place she wants to be, and she's perfectly happy staying out of the spotlight and doing the things she loves, which I think is great for her and something that she really deserves. But what do you guys think? Did you wonder what happened to her all those years ago? Have you ever listened to some of Nelly's less mainstream music? Let me know in the comments below.